Welcome back! Today, Hearthstone versus Magic the Gathering. Now, before we begin, I'm going to be comparing Hearthstone to paper Magic instead of Hearthstone to digital Magic, because if we did that, then it would be like Hulk Hogan body slamming a toddler. There really wouldn't be much competition. Now, of course, this YouTube channel has focused exclusively on Magic since its inception, so you might expect me to pander a little bit and just say that Magic is the best game ever made. Of course, Hearthstone loses. But we're not going to do that today. We're going to look at the two games and compare them both as products and as games. First, let's go over the product side of things, because that is very easy to compare. First, let's go over Google search results. Now, this is a very rough, unscientific way of comparing the two, but it still gives us a good idea on how much content is out there on the internet for people to consume. First, we search Hearthstone, which I would consider to be the most searched term for that game, and we get 34 million results. If we look up the full title, Hearthstone Heroes of Warcraft, we get 21 million results, for a total of 55 million search results for Hearthstone. For Magic, we first look up MTG, which gives us 37 million results. Then we use the full name, Magic the Gathering, and get 22 million results, for a total of 55 million results. Magic wins by a small margin here, 59 million versus 55 million. But this is actually quite close, and we have to consider that Magic has been around since the birth of the internet, whereas Hearthstone has been around for about 2 years. In that sense, Hearthstone has had a huge edge in inspiring online content creation. Next, let's go over the earnings for these two companies. Magic the Gathering is said to be earning about $250 million per year, though there's no official figure since it's mixed in with Hasbro's toy department. Whereas Hearthstone is earning $20 million per month, or $240 million per year, also not an official number from the developer. These numbers are basically in dead heat, especially since we don't know the official numbers to really say who won, so we're going to call this a tie. Next, we compare player bases between Magic the Gathering and Hearthstone. Magic the Gathering has a large player base of 20 million people worldwide, and this isn't that surprising because it's had so many years to build up this player base, and it's known as an extremely addictive game with comics such as Cardboard Crack illustrating this point for us. When we look at Hearthstone, however, we see that it is blowing Magic out of the water, with a total of 50 million players worldwide. And in fact, the most recent 10 million of those happened in the course of 5 months. That means that in just 5 months, Hearthstone added half as many players as Magic has accrued over the course of its entire lifespan. And of course, Magic's been around for over 20 years. With that said, it's very clear to me that Hearthstone is the stronger brand. But is it the stronger game? The most obvious difference between these two games is a lack of mana cards. Instead of using land, Hearthstone players get 1 more mana crystal every turn up to 10 mana crystals. This simplifies deck building in comparison to Magic, since in Magic you can tune the rate at which you draw mana, increasing or decreasing threat density to match your desired strategy. To continue with differences in deck building, instead of 5 colors of mana, Hearthstone has 9 classes. Of course, in Magic you can increase the raw power of your spells by increasing the number of colors in your deck. The trade-off for this power is the consistency of your mana base, which becomes worse with every color added. In Hearthstone, this would be like adding the strongest spells from each class into your deck, but there is no possibility to balance that with the current Hearthstone mechanics. In addition, a Hearthstone deck is only 30 cards instead of 60. A playset is also reduced to 2 instead of 4. This means your chances of drawing a card that you have added max copies is about the same for each game. However, the ability to add a single copy or 3 copies in Magic allows for a finer tuning of probabilities. The last outstanding difference in deck building is the existence of the hero abilities in Hearthstone. This allows mana curves which would easily be punished in Magic. Instead, they are ameliorated by access to a small effect which is available each turn. When looking at the Hearthstone battlefield, the main difference is the way combat is resolved. Instead of the defending player choosing how their creatures will interact in combat, the active player chooses all damage assigned for the turn, with damage marked on creatures permanently. Another interesting difference is the lack of a graveyard in Hearthstone. In Magic, cards can be targeted in the graveyard, and the graveyard is often used as an additional resource by players. In Hearthstone, there is no explicit graveyard on the battlefield. Cards that go to the graveyard in Hearthstone are essentially impossible to interact with. There are a few cards which allow the graveyard to be used as a resource, but they are very uncommon. Examples include N'Zoth the Corruptor, Redemption, and Anything Can Happen. There is one area of game design in which Hearthstone cannot be touched by Magic, and that is in regard to spells which have effects that require random generation and an impartial way to keep track of card effects. Examples of cards which could never be printed in Magic, but are common features in Hearthstone, include Shadow Step, Evolve, and Mind Vision. Another important part of Hearthstone is that games occur at what a Magic player would call sorcery speed. If it's not your turn, you have no control over the game, except in the case of a secret you've played. This lack of interaction during an opponent's turn is the biggest difference between these two games. Next, I would like to compare set design between these two games. That sounds like a near impossible task, but by chance, Hearthstone and Magic developed sets with the exact same theme at the same time. Magic has released Eldritch Moon, which looks at the unknown horrors of Innistrad, with the final Eldritch Big Baddie as Emrakul, the Promised End. Hearthstone recently released the Old Gods expansion pack, with the final Big Baddie as Cthulhu. Let's explore the design of the two and how they deliver on the promise of Eldritch Horror for the player. Emrakul is a 13/13 creature for 13. Ooh, the number 13, spooky! In addition, Emrakul has a cost reduction mechanic, and flying, trample, and protection from instants, so far we have a big monster. But it's just big. There's no horror associated with this design for the defending player. It's simply, yeah, you cast a big guy. The last ability, to take someone's turn for them, is known as a Mind Slaver effect, which certainly has some Eldritch implications. But what if you're a new player and you don't know the card Mind Slaver? In the end, this card is just a big creature with the number 13 slapped on it and some random mechanics. This does not deliver on the promise of Eldritch Horror. Next, let's look at Cthulhu, a fairly simple card which splits damage amongst random enemies. However, he comes with his own cult, working to summon him into the world. Blade of Cthulhu, Beckoner of Evil, Crazed Worshipper, and many more work together to increase the power of Cthulhu. As somebody playing against a Cthulhu deck, it's a scramble to remove these cards and win before Cthulhu hits the battlefield, with each passing turn increasing his power to levels which you are eventually incapable of overcoming. Each draw step of your opponent hastens your doom. The Old Gods set design encapsulates Eldritch Horror in a way that Eldritch Moon is not close to achieving. Another important difference between these games is their competitive play. Competitive play in Hearthstone is achieved by playing on a ladder, which awards stars for wins. Enough wins, and you climb up in a way which is not only clear to yourself, but is useful for comparison with other players. Magic is not this way. The lowest level of competition is Friday Night Magic, where you participate in a micro tournament. Afterwards, you can name the players which you beat, but there's no good method of seeing improvement. The only high-level thing that can be earned in Magic is pro points, but when 99% of players will never earn a single pro point, that's not a meaningful method of comparison. In conclusion, almost every single aspect of Hearthstone gameplay has been simplified from its counterpart in Magic. Is this simplification a good thing? Well, it allows for a game experience which is optimized for digital play, both on computer and, importantly, on phones and tablets. But which game has better gameplay when we strip away all the other factors? The answer to me is clearly Magic. The ability to control the game during your opponent's turn, complex deck building decisions, a more involved spellcasting system, interactive combat, and other factors turn Magic into a game whose complexities can be explored for decades. But the incredible rise of Hearthstone highlights the ways in which Magic is failing. The digital market, clear global competition for players, top-down set design, and others. Magic is already falling behind in this market, but they have the better game at its core. If Wizards learns from their competitors over at Blizzard, they will find great growth in the coming years. One clear-cut suggestion for Magic going forward from the lessons learned in Hearthstone is to remove the pro point system. I propose that they be removed and replaced with Planeswalker points, which are earned at every sanctioned Magic events, with more points being given for wins at Grand Prix, PPTQs, and other high-level events. This will allow anyone to compare their score regardless of competition. That's all for today. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to hit that like button. If you'd like to see more, hit that subscribe button. And as always, I'll see you next video.